What if a single night of unexpected passion not only left you breathless, but awakened a love so powerful it could bend destiny itself? What if the stranger who held you under the moonlight, with a touch that felt like fire wrapped in tenderness, wasn't human at all, but a being born from ancient magic, drawn to you as if your souls had been waiting for centuries? What if one reckless moment of wild, heart-stirring connection became the beginning of a love story, so intense, so soul-deep, that even the stars turned to watch? This isn't just a tale of a one-night encounter. It's the story of two fated hearts, pulled together by a force stronger than desire, stronger than destiny, and gentle enough to make even the wildest passion feel like home. Welcome to It Started with One Night Stand, a fantasy love journey filled with irresistible chemistry, romantic tension that tingles through every heartbeat, and the kind of emotional warmth that makes you believe in soulmates again. Welcome to It Started with One Night Stand, a fantasy romance overflowing with deep emotion, magnetic chemistry, and a wild, soulful passion that stays safe for YouTube, but still makes your heart race. The night it all began felt like the universe was holding its breath, waiting for something extraordinary to unfold. Evelyn Hart stepped out into the shimmering glow of a city that never slept, carrying a weight inside her chest she could no longer ignore. Her heart had been restless for months, whispering of desires she didn't fully understand, a longing for something deeper than comfort, more intense than simple affection, something almost wild in its tenderness. As she walked into the rooftop lounge, she felt as if the air around her shifted, brushing against her skin with a subtle warmth, as though an unseen force welcomed her to the moment that would change everything. She didn't know it yet, but she was walking into the arms of a destiny written in the stars long before she opened her eyes to this world. There was an energy in the atmosphere, not chaotic, but intoxicating, like soft fire dancing just beneath the surface. Her soul responded to it before her body did, stirring with curiosity, anticipation, and a gentle ache she couldn't name. She felt, deep inside, that this night was not meant for sorrow or silence. It was meant for transformation, for the kind of connection that melts into the heart with a heat that feels both pure and beautifully untamed. And as she leaned against the glass railing overlooking the glowing city below, she sensed that love, real love, wild yet harmonious, was waiting for her, hidden somewhere in the shadows of this very moment. Evelyn's breath caught when she felt a presence nearby, not threatening, but powerful, warm, and astonishingly familiar. She didn't turn right away. She simply allowed herself to feel it. The air thickened with a quiet electricity, the kind that sends a tender shiver down the spine, awakening the softest, sweetest parts of the heart. It wasn't lust. It wasn't fear. It was recognition, a silent remembering of someone she had never actually met. A connection that pulsed faintly beneath her ribs, as if her soul had finally found its missing echo. She closed her eyes for a moment, letting that warmth flow through her, soothing the loneliness she had carried for far too long. When she finally lifted her gaze, her eyes met the stranger's, and the world tilted in a slow, breathtaking way, as if time bent to make room for what they were about to become. He stood tall, carved from shadow and moonlight, with an aura that felt too ancient, too mesmerizing, too alive to belong to an ordinary man. His eyes shimmered with a silver glow that seemed to breathe with its own light, soft yet intensely focused on her. In those eyes, she felt a pull, a draw that wrapped around her heart like a gentle promise, whispering that she was safe, desired, and destined for something more than the life she had known. Her body warmed under his gaze, not with danger, but with a deep, slow-burning affection that made her feel seen for the first time. She didn't need his name to feel connected to him. She didn't need words to understand that something ancient, something magical, existed between them. There was no rush, no desperation, only a tender, wild current that wove through the space separating them, as if love itself stood between them, guiding their souls closer. Evelyn felt her heartbeat soften, then quicken, then soften again, as though her entire being was adjusting to this new gravitational pull. She sensed stories in his silence, long journeys through forgotten realms, battles fought in the name of love, centuries of yearning carved into the gentlest corners of his aura. The stranger stepped closer, not touching her, but close enough that she could feel the warmth radiating from him, a warmth that wrapped around her like a delicate embrace. It felt like standing before a fire in winter, comforting, inviting, protective, yet wild at its core. She inhaled, and the scent of him lingered in the air, a soft blend of celestial night and something sweetly familiar, like a memory she had lived in a dream. Her heart stretched toward him instinctively, her soul leaning forward in recognition. In that moment, Evelyn felt something awaken inside her, a hidden spark, gentle but potent, stirring like a sleeping star being called back to life. The night unfolded around them in a rhythm of quiet intensity, like the world itself decided to dim its noise and allow their connection to bloom freely. Evelyn felt him not just with her senses, but with her entire being. The warmth of his energy, the softness of his silent attention, the steady comfort of his presence. Their closeness was intimate in the safest way, brushing against the edges of something deeply romantic, yet beautifully restrained. The attraction between them was undeniable, but it wasn't rushed or reckless. It was slow and profound, like two hearts learning the shape of each other before daring to touch. As she leaned slightly closer, something magical stirred, a thin ripple of air, a silent glow beneath the stranger's skin, a faint vibration that hummed between them like a shared heartbeat. Evelyn didn't question it. She simply allowed herself to feel the tenderness blooming inside her chest, a delicately wild warmth that made her want to stay wrapped in this moment forever. She felt his presence settle into her, not with weight, but with depth, a comforting soul touch that made her spirit rise, stretch, and open in ways she had never known she needed. It was gentle, yet intoxicating, safe, yet thrilling, pure, yet touched with a quiet fire that whispered of destiny. By the time the night reached its peak, the connection between them had grown into something so beautifully intense that Evelyn felt as though the universe had woven a small sanctuary around their hearts. She did not know his origins, nor did she understand the strange, magical warmth that pulsed between them. But she knew, with absolute certainty, that their souls recognized each other. Her body tingled with the slightest brush of his energy. Her heart fluttered when he leaned closer, as if drawn by an invisible bond. Their closeness was intimate but gentle, wild but safe, a dance of two souls drifting toward a fate they could no longer resist. When he finally rested his forehead against hers, even without touching, she felt a soft explosion of warmth inside her chest, a sensation so tender yet powerful that tears pricked at her eyes. It was the beginning of something extraordinary, a love that carried the sweetness of destiny and the wildness of ancient magic. She felt the universe shift, adjusting its threads to pull their hearts together. In that suspended moment, Evelyn realized that true love, the kind that changes everything, doesn't always begin with certainty. Sometimes it begins with a night bathed in soft fire, with a stranger whose soul feels like home, and with a spark that grows into a flame strong enough to rewrite fate itself. Morning arrived like a gentle whisper, carrying with it the soft colors of dawn that painted the sky in hues of rose and gold. Evelyn awoke with a strange sense of fullness, as though her heart had been carefully cradled through the night by unseen hands. She wasn't certain if the warmth that lingered in her chest came from memory or magic, only that it felt impossibly tender. Her body still hummed with the echo of the connection she had experienced, that quiet, wild, soul-deep pull that felt more like a cosmic vow than a chance encounter. Even in his absence, his presence clung to her like a warm breeze that refused to fade, brushing gently against her skin, as if reminding her she had been touched not just by a stranger, but by destiny itself. The world around her seemed different, as if the simple act of breathing had become a sweeter, more meaningful experience. The city's distant hum no longer felt overwhelming. Instead, it blended into a soft symphony of life that felt strangely alive with possibility. Evelyn moved through her day with an awareness she couldn't explain, a quiet awakening blooming inside her, stretching through her veins like sunlight spreading across the morning sky. She felt lighter yet grounded, vulnerable yet strengthened. Every heartbeat reminded her of the connection she had formed, that impossible bond that seemed to bridge not just two bodies, but two souls shaped by forces older than time. As hours passed, she noticed the world responding to her in subtle, enchanting ways. Streetlights flickered softly when she walked beneath them, as if greeting her. The autumn wind curled around her in warm spirals instead of harsh currents, carrying with it a scent reminiscent of starlight and distant realms. Even her reflection seemed different, not in appearance, but in aura. There was a glow in her eyes, a softness blooming behind her expression, like the first bloom of a flower finally given sunlight. She sensed that her heart had opened in ways she never thought possible, awakening a deeper sensitivity to beauty, to emotion, to everything that once felt unreachable. Love, or something beautifully close to it, had settled quietly inside her chest. It wasn't the chaotic, consuming love she had read about. It was gentler, warmer, infused with the kind of intimacy that didn't need words to be felt. She carried it through the day like a secret flame, small but unextinguished, illuminating every thought with a soft golden hue. When she closed her eyes, she felt the echo of his soul pulse faintly against her own, as if somewhere in the wide expanse of the world, he was thinking of her too. It wasn't a longing born of emptiness, but of recognition, a pull that promised something greater than desire, something far deeper than the fleeting rush of a night. And although she told herself she might never see him again, her heart refused to accept such an ending. Something inside her whispered that their story was only beginning, shaped by a force gentle yet unbreakable. It was a kind of bond woven in the quiet corners of the universe, where stardust carried the memories of souls that had loved across lifetimes. Evelyn felt the world aligning around her, bending ever so slightly, as if preparing her for a path she had not chosen, but had always been meant to walk. And deep within that newfound tenderness, she sensed a truth rising like dawn, that love, real love, was not something she had stumbled into. It had found her, claimed her, and it would return, carrying with it the wild, breathtaking magic that had touched her soul and awakened the power she didn't yet know she possessed. Days passed in a rhythm that felt strangely enchanted, as though the universe had begun weaving invisible threads around Evelyn, drawing her closer to something she could sense but not yet see. She moved through her routines with an inner glow, carrying the quiet warmth of that night like a lantern inside her chest. It was not an obsession, nor a desperate longing, but a gentle certainty that something extraordinary was unfolding through her life. Her dreams grew richer, painted in colors she had never witnessed before, deep silver skies, ancient forests glowing with soft luminescence, and a pair of familiar eyes watching her with a tenderness that felt eternal. Each morning she awoke with a sensation of being held by a memory too powerful to fade. There were moments when her heart beat faster for no reason, moments when the air around her shimmered with a subtle warmth, brushing across her skin like a delicate caress. She began noticing symbols carved into the world itself, spirals and fallen leaves, patterns of light on windows, quiet alignments that felt almost intentional. It was as though the universe whispered soft invitations, pulling her into an unseen story written beneath the fabric of reality. And deep inside her, beneath breath, beneath heartbeat, something ancient stirred. It felt like the awakening of a dormant seed, a tender spark of energy that pulsed in time with the memory of the stranger whose presence still lived within her. On a quiet evening, while the world around her softened into twilight, Evelyn felt the pull grow stronger. It wasn't frightening, but soothing, an invisible hand guiding her toward a truth she had ignored for too long. She sensed that her emotions had begun shaping the world around her, bending the air with warmth when her heart swelled, and softening shadows when memories of tenderness passed through her mind. The magic she had glimpsed that night was no longer distant. It lived inside her, shaping itself into something beautifully wild and oddly familiar. She felt connected to a power older than time, a rhythm that hummed faintly beneath her heartbeat as if welcoming her home. Her thoughts drifted often to the stranger, his presence, his warmth, the unspoken connection that had pulled them together with such undeniable force. She replayed the sensation of standing near him, the quiet electricity that wrapped around them like a velvet storm. It had not been lust nor fleeting attraction. It was a merging of souls, a recognition rooted deeper than memory. That night had left her with more than yearning. It left her with knowledge that love could be gentle and powerful at once, that intimacy could bloom from silence, and that destiny sometimes arrives in a single moment, wrapped in moonlight and untamed energy. The more she remembered, the more her heart unfolded, blossoming into a softness she had never allowed herself to feel before. And so, with each passing day, Evelyn stepped into her life with a new sense of purpose. She felt the universe shifting, preparing her for a love that transcended reason, time, and the boundaries of ordinary existence. She carried the stranger's presence inside her like a melody that refused to fade, harmonizing with her own heartbeat as though their souls had intertwined in ways she could not yet comprehend. She sensed that their connection was far from over. If anything, this was merely the beginning. Some loves do not burn quickly. They grow in slow, breathtaking waves, filling the heart with warmth until it becomes impossible to return to who one once was. Evelyn understood now. Her life had begun to change the moment she met him, and the next chapter of their intertwined destiny was already moving toward her, quiet and inevitable as dawn. Night descended with a softness that felt almost enchanted, as though the heavens themselves had drawn nearer to witness the quiet fire blooming between their hearts. The desert breeze carried a warm hush, wrapping around them like an intimate secret whispered only by the wind. He, strong yet calm, wild yet restrained, felt something shifting within him, something deeper than passion, more powerful than desire. His heartbeat was no longer his own. Every pulse seemed to tether itself to her presence. For the first time, he understood that love was more than a vow. It was a journey, a slow-burning flame that replaced fear with courage. She awakened that courage in him, not through boldness, but through tenderness, so profound it unsettled everything he thought he knew about strength. Under the starlit canopy, a wild longing stirred between them, gentle, safe, but undeniably intense. It wasn't a hunger of the body, but of the soul, a fire that warmed rather than consumed. He felt the untamed side of himself soften in the glow of her presence, finding a home in her quiet grace. And there, in the hush of moonlit sand, their love grew, not through touch or words, but through the silent promise that two hearts could ignite without ever crossing a boundary. A wild romance, wrapped in purity, vibrant yet serene, like starlight dancing on warm desert winds. The morning arrived gently, scattering golden rays across the palace gardens, where they walked side by side in peaceful silence. Though no words passed between them, their steps carried a rhythm that belonged only to two hearts slowly merging into one. She moved with a new kind of freedom, born not from escape, but from feeling seen, cherished, and safe. He admired her in quiet awe, sensing that loving her was not about holding tightly, but allowing her to shine without restraint. Every fleeting glance they shared pulled at something deep within him, awakening an intensity that felt both wild and sacred. Their connection wasn't expressed through touch. It lived in the air between them, warm enough to stir butterflies, yet calm enough to soothe every hidden fear. Their lives, once separate lines drawn by fate, now began to curve gently toward one another. Desire simmered, not the kind that sought to overwhelm, but the kind that wrapped itself around the heart, whispering promises of love that grew stronger with every breath. They were like two flames glowing close enough to share warmth without becoming one. Two luminous souls drawing nearer, shaping a bond that was safe, unhurried, yet unbelievably powerful. That afternoon, the northern wind swept softly across the desert, warm and shimmering, as though carrying the very heartbeat of the land. She stood at the balcony overlooking the endless dunes, her figure glowing beneath the sun. Peace radiated from her, a peace born from knowing she was no longer alone in her journey. From a distance, he watched her, overwhelmed by admiration. She was strength wrapped in softness, courage wrapped in grace. In loving her, he discovered a version of himself that was calmer, gentler, yet filled with a wild longing that stayed carefully tethered to respect. The wind lifted strands of her hair, letting them dance freely, creating a sight so romantic it felt almost unreal. His chest tightened, not with overwhelming desire, but with the kind of yearning that made the soul tremble. A quiet fire stirred within him, warm rather than scorching, reminding him that love could ignite without burning. The desert, vast and ancient, seemed to understand. Its winds carried not only heat but blessing, an invitation for two souls to grow closer in a bond that was both fierce and tender. Days passed, and their connection deepened in a way that needed no physical closeness to flourish. Their silence held emotion richer than any spoken confession. A simple glance, a shared breath, the way their paths naturally gravitated toward each other. Each moment added another layer to their bond. She felt herself drawn to him with a warmth that never frightened her. There was something wild in the way her heart reacted to his presence, yet it remained safe, wrapped in a feeling of being deeply valued. She allowed herself to lean into these emotions, embracing the sweet rush without fear or hesitation. He, too, felt the shift. A fierce part of him longed to pull her closer, to hold her, to claim the warmth she stirred within him. But he held that longing gently, knowing that true love was patient. His restraint did not weaken his passion, it strengthened it, turning desire into something deeper, something sacred. They became like two celestial bodies orbiting nearer and nearer, not colliding, but aligning. Their bond grew beyond touch, beyond speech, rooted instead in understanding, yearning, and respect. A love that burned quietly, but brilliantly. Night returned with a soft hush, laying a velvet sky above them shimmering with countless stars. They stood apart yet connected, surrounded by the kind of silence that made every heartbeat sound like a confession. She felt a profound shift inside her, a realization that she was no longer wandering through life, but being gently guided by a love that honored her spirit. He, who once carried tempest and fire inside him, now felt the storm settle as he embraced the tenderness she awakened. Their hearts aligned, not through touch or spoken vows, but through a magnetic pull that settled every uncertainty. A wild love, yet gentle. A fierce love, yet safe. A bond formed not by taking, but by giving freedom, warmth, devotion. Under the desert sky, their souls met fully for the first time. And in that meeting, their love became destiny. The desert carried a different kind of silence that night, one that felt alive, attentive, as if the land itself had awakened to witness the quiet transformation taking place between them. The wind moved gently, weaving warm currents around their bodies with the care of an unseen guardian. The moon descended lower than usual, resting like a glowing blessing above their heads. He felt the universe gathering, folding itself closer around them as if acknowledging their bond. Love, once a tender spark between them, had become something powerful, steady, and radiant. His heart no longer carried the weight of uncertainty. Instead, it pulsed with a fierce devotion shaped by patience and reverence. She, too, sensed the shift. A warmth unfurled within her chest, soft, bold, and exhilarating. Her world expanded, filling with colors she had never known, with quiet magic that whispered promises of a future shaped by both freedom and closeness. She felt herself stepping into a destiny woven long before she ever met him, guided by a love that grew stronger with every breath. The days that followed blossomed with an effortless harmony, as though their hearts had finally found the same rhythm. They moved through the palace grounds like two flames dancing side by side, never merging fully, yet warming the space between them with an intensity that could not be ignored. Their emotions grew deeper, fueled by unspoken longing and an unshakable emotional pull. He found himself admiring her courage, her softness, and the strength she didn't realize she possessed. His affection for her was not the kind that sought to consume. It was the kind that sought to protect, to cherish, to grow alongside. She felt herself becoming braver in his presence. Not because he demanded it, but because his quiet devotion made her believe she was capable of more than she ever imagined. Her heart began to open in ways she had once feared. Slowly, beautifully, completely. Their connection was a tender fire, wild yet controlled, fierce yet gentle, burning safely between them without ever losing its warmth. The world around them began to shift, responding to the touch of their deepening bond. At night, the stars shone brighter, shimmering with ancient wisdom, as though recognizing the rare love forming beneath their glow. Soft ripples of magic moved through the air whenever they came close, subtle but undeniable, echoes of a destiny older than both of them. He felt the power of it in his veins, a mystical calling awakened by their connection, urging him toward a future he could no longer resist. For years, he had carried the weight of supernatural strength alone, uncertain whether it was a blessing or a curse. But now, with her near, his power felt different, calmer, steadier, purposeful. She sensed that same magic reaching out to her, tugging gently at her spirit, as though inviting her into a world she was always meant to belong to. It didn't frighten her. Instead, it filled her with awe, whispering that love was not only an emotion, but a force capable of reshaping reality. Their destinies, once parallel lines, now drew closer with every heartbeat, converging into a path neither could ignore. There came a morning when the pull between them felt stronger than ever, an invisible gravity drawing their souls closer in a way that defied reason. Even when they stood apart, their energies intertwined, swirling around them in warm currents like a silent embrace. He struggled to contain the tide of emotion rising within him. Every time he saw her, his chest tightened with longing, wild, tender, undeniably real. Yet he held it with the same careful restraint he always had, honoring her pace, honoring her freedom. His love was fierce, but it was never forceful. She felt that gravity just as strongly. The more she tried to understand it, the more she realized it was not something that required understanding. It was something to be felt. The warmth of his presence wrapped around her like a protective shield, grounding her while awakening sensations that made her heart race. In the quiet, she allowed herself to lean into the pull, trusting the certainty that had grown steadily within her. Their hearts were aligning not by accident, but by fate. Night descended again, rich and velvety, casting silver reflections over the desert as if preparing for something sacred. She stood beneath the sky, feeling the world slow around her. Her emotions rose like a tide, gentle yet overwhelming, full of warmth and unspoken depth. He approached her not with urgency, but with reverence. Everything within him surged with devotion, an ache of affection, a longing tempered by patience, a wild love tamed by respect. He carried the kind of passion that protected rather than consumed. In that moment, without words, their hearts sealed a silent promise. The bond between them solidified, calm, powerful, unbreakable. They did not touch, yet they felt closer than ever before. Love flowed freely between them, a mystical, soul-deep connection shaped by fate, strengthened by time, and ignited by a single night that neither of them could ever forget. Their journey was only beginning, but already, the universe moved around them as though honoring the union of two souls destined to find each other, wildly, gently, beautifully. The morning after their silent promise, the world around them seemed to shift ever so slightly, as though acknowledging the unseen vow that had blossomed in the night. The palace corridors hummed with a subtle warmth, and even the desert winds moved with a gentler rhythm. Within him a storm brewed, not one of chaos, but one of tenderness so fiercely beautiful it left him breathless. His heart beat with a new intensity, carrying a wild devotion that felt both exhilarating and humbling. She had awakened something within him, something ancient and deeply human, something he had never known he was capable of feeling. She, too, carried a blooming softness in her chest. Her steps were lighter, fueled by a quiet glow that radiated from her very soul. She felt safe, cherished, and beautifully alive. It was as though her heart had finally found a home, not through possession, but through connection, not through control, but through warmth. A subtle magic began to follow her wherever she walked. The petals of the garden flowers shifted toward her as though drawn to her light. The desert sands shimmered with faint traces of energy that curled around her in soft spirals. Her connection to him seemed to awaken hidden gifts within her, gifts that had long slept beneath the surface of her spirit. The world responded not to her strength alone, but to the purity of the bond she had formed with him, a bond that blended destiny and emotion into one unstoppable force. He watched this quiet transformation with awe. She glowed not with power, but with love, love that made her stronger, love that made him gentler, love that reshaped the very air between them. Their energies, once separate currents, now flowed together in a beautiful harmony that felt as natural as breathing. There were moments when their connection became almost overwhelming, moments when their hearts beat too loudly, when their energies reached for one another with irresistible intensity. The air between them shimmered with warmth whenever they were near, carrying promises of emotions too powerful to hide. He felt a longing that ran deeper than desire, a yearning to be close, to protect her, to share every breath of her journey. Yet he held that yearning carefully, shaping it into respect. His love became a quiet devotion, a wild fire contained within gentle boundaries. She sensed that longing, felt it like soft waves brushing against her soul. Instead of fear, it filled her with comfort, with a steady reassurance that she was cherished in a way she had never known before. Their silence became a sanctuary, a place where emotions could bloom without pressure, where longing could exist without demand. One evening, as twilight cast gold across the sky, a strange stillness settled around them. The world seemed to hold its breath. The desert, usually alive with wind and shifting dunes, rested in complete serenity, as though waiting for a moment it had seen centuries before. She felt it first, a soft vibration in her chest, a pulse of energy that traveled through her veins like warm water. It was the same magic she had begun to feel days earlier, but now it was stronger, more certain, more purposeful. He felt it too, a familiar power rising within him, merging with a new force he had only recently begun to understand. Their destinies, long intertwined by threads unseen, were moving into alignment. The universe was opening a path, calling them forward. Their hearts responded in perfect unison, beating with a rhythm that echoed ancient promises. Under the velvet blue of nightfall, the magic within them finally blossomed into something visible. A soft glow radiated around her, shimmering like liquid moonlight. He approached slowly, not out of hesitation, but reverence. The closer he came, the brighter the light became, until it wrapped them both in a warm, golden aura. It wasn't just magic. It was love manifesting in its purest form. A love untainted by fear or expectation. A love that was wild yet gentle, fierce yet kind, powerful yet safe. Their hearts merged into a single, steady pulse that resonated through the quiet desert night. The universe, ancient and wise, embraced their connection fully. No touch, no words, yet the moment felt like the beginning of forever. Their love had become light, and that light was only the start of an even greater destiny. The night after their shared awakening shimmered with an otherworldly glow. The stars no longer felt distant. They hung low, pulsing like ancient eyes watching over the two souls whose destinies were finally colliding. She felt the earth hum beneath her feet, resonating with the same quiet magic that now lived inside her. He sensed something stirring beyond the boundaries of the mortal world, a whisper of an ancient prophecy woven through time. It spoke not of power or danger, but of love, a bond capable of awakening the old forces of light and restoring balance to a world slowly losing its wonder. Their connection was no accident. It was a long-awaited alignment, a rare union that defied age and memory. Love had chosen them, softly, fiercely, beautifully. With every day that passed, her presence became a source of light stronger than any spell. She radiated warmth that softened shadows, strength that soothed storms, and compassion that awakened dormant sparks within the palace. He watched as her quiet glow touched everything around them. Flowers bloomed faster. Water shone with silver reflections. Even the winds carried melodies of calm when she walked through the gardens. She did not try to be extraordinary. She simply was. And in that simplicity, her heart grew into something luminous, a force of love that both humbled and empowered him. Where his magic had always been wild, hers transformed it into balance. Where his destiny had once been heavy, hers made it meaningful. Together, they became harmony. Their days unfolded in a gentle rhythm, steady, warm, unhurried. With each sunrise, they discovered new layers of connection. Silent moments filled with longing, tender emotions that grew deeper with every heartbeat, and small glimmers of magic that danced between them whenever their energies touched. She found comfort in the quiet intensity of his presence. He found peace in the unspoken strength of her affection. There was no need for declarations or grand gestures. Their love built itself through shared breaths, intertwined destinies, and the invisible threads of fate binding them closer. The world around them seemed to bend in reverence, as though recognizing a timeless love that would outlive kingdoms, storms, and centuries. Their bond had become eternal, not through promises, but through existence itself. One evening, as twilight draped itself over the horizon, the world paused in profound stillness. A soft breeze rose, carrying ancient murmurs across the sand. The sky shimmered with muted gold, and the stars aligned in unfamiliar patterns seen only during the rise of legendary unions. She felt the universe open around her, embracing her with the warmth of countless generations who had waited for this moment. He felt the mantle of destiny settling gently upon his shoulders, not as a burden, but as a blessing. Their energies fused into one wave of radiant warmth that rippled outward across the land. Every corner of the desert brightened for a heartbeat, every shadow softened, every living thing exhaled with calm. This was not the beginning of a romance. This was the crowning of a love chosen by the world itself. The night embraced them in a tender glow as the stars formed a radiant arc overhead, as if sealing their story into the heavens. A soft golden light enveloped the two souls who had walked through destiny, longing, and magic to find each other. She stood bathed in moonlight, her heart open and fearless. He approached with the serenity of someone who had finally discovered where he belonged. Their energies leaned into one another, weaving a tapestry of love that shimmered brighter than the universe around them. No words, no touch, just a profound joining of two souls. Their love became a celestial signature, etched across the sky for every future generation to witness. An eternal reminder that even one night, one spark, can rewrite the fate of two hearts forever. And so, their journey began not with promises or expectations, but with a single night that awakened destiny. A night that transformed two souls into one heart, one path, one unforgettable story. Their love grew wild yet gentle, powerful yet tender, magical yet deeply human. A reminder to every heart watching that sometimes the most extraordinary love stories begin in the most unexpected moments. If you want this tale to continue, if you want a new season, a deeper saga, or a new chapter of their eternal bond, let your heart speak in the comments. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to the Snap of Two Hearts for more romantic fantasy stories that touch the soul and awaken the magic of love within us all.